Episode 18. Is dying that easy? Dario's eyes showed a hint of surprise as he let out a smirk. Jade was smarter than he expected. Dying is not that easy. He blurted out these words with his seductive plump lips. Although what Dario said seemed to be random, it actually touched Jade's heart. For the first time, she realized that there was someone who could understand her well. It was true that she had considered dying. If she hadn't, she wouldn't have been kneeling on the street so that she could easily come in front of any vehicle. At that time, she felt that she'd fallen into a black hole and it was pitch black all around her. She'd been living in a world of being bullied by others and being restrained by her only family. She felt useless because she hadn't recognized the one who saved her 5 years ago, which led her to love the wrong man. She thought that she might as well die, since that way no one else would be able to decide her fate. But Dario's actions had completely sobered her up. She realized death was much more terrifying than living. During the moment when her head was forced out of the car door, many good memories about her family, grandmother, friends, and the man who saved her flashed through her mind. The most important thing was that she must take revenge on her aunt and uncle, who took away her father's inheritance and seized what belonged to her. How could she just die and fulfill their wish? Their daughter and her cousin sister Ivana stole her boyfriend, and Bruce used despicable means to hurt her. Death would bring sadness to the one who loved them and happiness to their nemesis. How could she just leave this world and let them live happily ever after? She must not. Jade rubbed her red and swollen yet beautiful eyes and regained her spirit. Unexpectedly, Dario had shown a faint smile on his usually ice-cold face. When he saw Jade, her eyes were filled with despair, and she looked as if she had lost her soul. Then, she finally found her path back to her soul. I know you're trying to help me, so thank you. It's fortunate that you found me tonight. If you hadn't, I'm not sure what I would have done. Although Jade's lips were dry, her smile was beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Jade thought that from now on, she must live a good life for herself. Who the heck was Bruce anyway? Just a scumbag who did not deserve her tears. But she did not expect Dario to use the method he did to enlighten her. It was simply too much excitement. Dario smiled and pretended to be indifferent as he said, Don't misunderstand me. I really did want to push you out of the car. Jade blinked her eyes and remained silent. She knew that he was a caring person on the inside, but full of pride at the same time. So she remained silent. In the next moment, Dario had an evil smirk on his face, and his gaze looked like a bloodthirsty murderer. Then, a soft yet heartless voice made an ethereal sound in the car. I will make those who made you cry pay. What did you just say now? Jade was dumbfounded as she looked strangely at the handsome yet indifferent face before her. He seemed to have said something, but it was too soft, so she did not hear it clearly. Dario did not say a word, but forcefully pulled her to his side and forced her into his arms. Then, he said to her in a commanding manner, Get some rest. Since she could not resist, she might as well enjoy it. The unfamiliar but minty fragrance of his body made Jade feel secure, more secure than she'd felt living in the Winslet family for over 10 years. She then closed her eyes and sobbed silently without anyone knowing. Dario looked at the woman trembling in his arms, and his cold black pupils contracted. He held her arms even tighter and made a decision. After some time, Jade leaned into Dario's muscular warm embrace and fell asleep unwittingly from exhaustion. Her breathing was calm, and she slept as quietly as a child. But during her sleep, she frowned from time to time as though she was bothered by many things. Dario, where should we go now? Lucas whispered softly. Lucas thought that Dario would say to go to a hotel. Go home. Apart from his mother and servants, no other woman had ever entered Dario's house. You talk a little too much today, Dario said impatiently. Dario wondered if he should consider changing his driver. Lucas immediately shut his mouth and returned to Dario's mansion as fast as he could, and then he disappeared from Dario's sight. Lucas was unsure whether he should still search for the girl from 5 years ago. What did Dario mean? When Dario carried Jade to the door, the butler immediately opened it, and the maids were waiting in a neat row in the hall. The scene was spectacular. Welcome back, Mr. Foster. Dario glanced at the butler and pointed at the woman who was sleeping soundly in his arms. The butler and the maids held their breath. The pitiful butler was covered in a cold sweat. Dario had never glanced at him that way before. Dario ignored the crowd that came to greet him and carried Jade up to the second floor. His bedroom was on the right side of the second floor. Besides his bedroom, there was also a changing room, a gym, and a study room. The mansion had everything he needed, and it was even more flourishing than downtown. Dario carefully laid her on his bed and gently covered her with a blanket to warm her up. The yellowish light of the side lamp by the bed gently shone on her beautiful sleeping face. His gaze darkened as he stared at her red and swollen cheek. He could not help but frown as he muttered to himself, "She is really troublesome." There seemed to be many slap marks on her face. A cool sensation woke Jade up. She opened her eyes and saw that Dario was applying ointment to her face. She looked around at the unfamiliar surroundings. The room was minimally furnished, yet it still looked elegant. The man before her eyes looked so gentle under the dim light, but his eyes were still as cold as ice, making him seem unapproachable.